You know, as Karen has said, many of you who came in the past in Brussels will remember, and maybe somehow in some quarters of the city, see Brussels as a city for cars. For the ones who know a little bit Brussels, this is right in the center of Brussels. Le Vieux Marché aux Grains, a couple of years ago, it was like this, and today it is like that. And that's, of course, the transformation from a city for cars to a city for people that we have now been doing the last 10 years. This is La Bourse. It's right in the heart of the city. You probably have seen that building. If not, you will do it tonight when you're going to what's the most beautiful square in the world. The Grand Place is just next to it. And it used to be like that, 4 lanes, 2 in every direction. Then it became 1 lane and a kind of a marked cycling lane. And today it is like this. It's only pedestrians, only cyclists, and no longer cars. At the time when we did it, everybody declared us crazy. It was going to stop everything, but it worked pretty well out. So we made the last years in Brussels a transformation from a city for cars to a city for people. And I will give you some facts, what we have done, why we have done, and particularly how we have done it. You know, Brussels, it's still today, Brussels a little bit like that in the Rue de la Loi. We are a capital city. We are the capital of many, many, many things, as you know, from Belgium, the Flemish community, the NATO, European Union, but we're definitely not yet the capital of cycling. It will come one day. We have 1.2 million inhabitants, but every day we will have something like 300, 400,000 people coming into the city. It was, of course, before COVID times. They will come back. We have 162 square kilometers. We have 7,500 inhabitants per square kilometer, pretty dense. And some neighborhoods, it goes up till 22,000 inhabitants per square kilometer. 1 out of 2 the households, and that's a very important figure in Brussels, has no car. And in some areas, it's only 1 out of 4 that will have a car. And that people tend to forget, but it's like that. As I said, we are a commuter city. You know, Belgium is a small country, so many people can live in Flanders, in Wallonia. It's very close. The airport is 10 kilometers from here. It's in Flanders. So people will commute a lot, and half of them will do that by car. So most of them don't use the train or the bicycle, although we are working now on bicycle lanes that connect the Flemish and the French-speaking region to Brussels. The metropolitan area, the real metropolitan area of the Brussels capital region, if you want, it's not institutionally like that, but economic like that, is 2.4 million inhabitants. So we are now transforming our city into a city for people. Once again, you will see the central boulevards. It used to be 2 lanes in every direction. Just figure out, no longer cars, a lot of people, the shops go, there's a lot of investment now going on of the real estate sector because it works. But you have to dare, and I will come back on that. What did we do in Brussels? First of all, we made car-free squares. I don't know if you remember this place. Some of you who might know Brussels. It's a place where Europeans, Eurocrats, visitors like a lot. It's La Place Flagey. It's right at the crossroads in Brussels in some area where you have rich and poor, immigrants, non-immigrants coming together. And it used to be like that. Today, it is like that. So it's a car-free square. And we started with car-free squares because we wanted to give the message to people, it can be different, you know. You can meet each other on a square, and everybody likes a square when the square is there. Of course, the process of getting there is something else, but once it's there, and of course you will see some water too, it always works very well, and that's maybe the benefit of climate change. It's getting a little bit warmer, so we can use that a little bit more with kids playing in the thing. The second thing that we have done, of course, we have more squares like that, but I just give one example. Another example I want to give, this is La Petite Center, as we call it, right in the center of the town. It's a kind of ring belt around the old town. We are building separate bike lanes over there. It looks like that. So we took away simply a lane for the cars, and we gave it back to pedestrians and cyclists, and everybody is pretty happy about it. And we did it around the old town. Why again? So we wanted people to see that it can work, and it's a connection from other cycling lanes. And so this gives a kind of feeling that it can change. Just to give you a little idea, 18 years ago when I came living in Brussels, people shouted at me at the street, "Go back to Flanders. We don't bike in Brussels, you know? We don't bike. What are you trying to do? You're changing our DNA. Huh? It's not what we are." And today, people are asking much more for cycling lanes, separated, secured cycling lanes. So if Brussels can change it, everybody can change it. Another thing we are doing is creating new public space. For instance, parks. This is not far away in the center. It used to be a kind of no man's land, and today you see you have a green area. This is an evolutive park, which means we start with not much things, less, a bit less is more. But people, when they use the park, they can say, we want this, we want more trees, we want more this and that. So that will come in the future. Brussels, after war, thought it had to be a very modern city. You know, we were going to copy the American model of cities, which of course was a big mistake, but we destroyed neighborhoods, we built flyovers, we made highways in the city, and then we got this kind of infrastructure. And what we wanted to do now is to limit access to the city. Of course, we remain accessible for the commuters, but no longer with 5 lanes in every direction. So we are reducing the space to that. And what we are also be doing is demolishing flyovers that don't really have a use. This used to be a big, very known flyover, Reyers, in Brussels. It's gone today, and people are happy. Now the definite works will start to make a nice urban boulevard of that. Of course, we have invested a lot in public space, creating more place for people, less for cars. That's the whole idea. Not against cars, but less space for cars. The second thing that we have done, and still are doing today, is investing massively in public transport to give an alternative, because that's very important for people, for the narrative. Okay, you don't have the car, but you have something else. Of course, you have the bike, but you have also public transport. And the thing what we have chosen to do is to do new tram lines. Very important, we green the tram lines. That was a big fight with the operator of the public transport, because they don't like the greenery, because they have to maintain it, you know. For them, it's easier to mineralize it, to put asphalt. We said, no, we have to green it, we have to put trees and things like that. It gives a much more urban feeling. So we did a couple of new tram lines. We are building a new subway line, and of course, renovating our subway stations. I don't know if you have the time, but if you have the time, try and go to visit some of our subway stations, because it's kind of an open-air museum. We have lots of art in our subway stations. What we also did is buying and creating new vehicles. And that was a very deliberate choice. You know, public transport in most cities is something very ugly. It's yellow, it's blue, it's fuchsia, all the colors that you would never buy if you buy a car. Unless you're a little bit wacko, huh? You have to think about it. Huh? Why all these years public transport was being done in a very ugly color and very cheap material. So you were giving the message to people, you take public transport, you're cheap, you know. So we said we're going to do it different. We are going to ask a designer, a car designer, to design our subway trains, our tram trains, our buses, and give colors like you can see, black, gray, a lot of wood in there, a lot of indirect lighting, leather seats. People are saying, no, they're getting crazy completely in Brussels. They are going to get leather seats for public transport. But you know something? Vandalism went down like this. People respected it because we respected people. We were giving high-quality public transport to the people. You see the indirect lighting, and if you go in a vehicle like that, you think you're going into a car. You're going into something like an airplane, you know, and it's always nicer than using cheap public transport. So that was a very deliberate choice, and this guy at the right is our king. We explained all these things to them, and look how surprised he looks. I don't think he uses it regularly, but anyway. Then the whole thing was, by doing that, is changing the mentality in the city. So people have to get another mindset, because people grew up, as Matthew said, with the whole idea of cars. It's natural, it's a thing, it's a natural thing. But actually, I'm pretty convinced that our kids or grandkids, they will learn in school that the biggest mistake that mankind has ever made was the invention of the private owned car for cities. I'm sure. That will be said and taught in lessons, but we did it. So we have to change the mentality. By changing the mentality, actually, we are going back to the past. If you see this image, for the ones who recognize of you Brussels, this used to be Brussels 150 years ago. It's exactly what we want back. Big places, roads for cyclists, for pedestrians, less for cars. You know, that's the situation today. If you go this, many of these buildings still exist and the park still exists, it will be only cars. And so what we actually are doing, all of us, not only changing our mentality, we are going back to the past. And we are in some way restoring a mistake that we have all collectively made. Why are we doing this? It can be very quickly. I think you will all agree with me, it's quality of life. The lesson I learned is never talk about mobility. Because when you come into a room and you start to talk about, you have to leave your car on, people will say, once again, they are maybe changing a little bit now, but for a long period, people were saying, oh, they are back again, it's not for me, it's someone else. But if you start about quality of life, who can be against quality of life? Everybody wants quality of life. And people can figure out, and it's a kind of container thing that people can fill in themselves. So it's something that people will say, yeah, you know, that is a real situation. Used to be a car later, 3-4 years ago, still cars being parked over there. Now kids are playing, and people say, yeah, that is good. So second thing, of course, quality, air quality. You know, that's something that people start to understand. Just a little anecdote. How did the people in Brussels understand there was an issue with air quality? There was the Public Broadcasting Corporation. They made a kind of inquiry, and they discovered that kids were peeing pollution. And then all these parents, also the ones who dropped their kids in the morning with a very fancy car, BMW, you know, Audi, very expensive, dropping their cars in the morning, were all of a sudden realizing, I'm a part of a problem, because my kid is peeing pollution. It's true, huh? So you have to do it in your cities too. Test that, and you will see it. So, and that was a big mind change for people. Of course, we do that because we want to restore the core function of a city. Once again, in 2019, this only changed. This only 3 years ago, it was still like this, another square in Brussels, and this became this, a place where people meet. One of the core functions of a city is interaction of human beings. I don't know if you know when two cars meet each other in the morning, how we call that? An accident. You know how two car drivers say hello to each other in the morning? You know how cyclists say hello in the morning? Hi, how are you? I'm saying that it's a completely different way of living the city. You live it as a human being. And this aggressivity is going out. Although I have to admit, more and more in Brussels, some cyclists start to behave like car drivers on a bike. So that's also something that we have to work on. Interaction. How did we do it? I have to go a little bit quicker, I think. The first lesson I learned, never talk about the means. Talk about the objectives. Never talk about, we are going to reduce the cars in the city. Then people will say, yeah. Or we want more space for things. It's all means. But if you talk about air quality, if you talk about quality of life, giving space for kids to play in the streets, people will say, yeah, of course we need that. You know, who can be against creating space for a kid to play in the street? Think about it. Who can be against it? Who can be against terraces in a city? We had with COVID, huh? You were a little bit joking with Brussels. Huh? It's too cold, too raining, but we have eliminated lots of car space because we allowed the restaurant owners, the cafe owners to make, during COVID time, terraces in the city. We just eliminated thousands of parking space. And nobody was saying, what are they doing now? They're taking away my park space. No, they were saying how they are creating a terrace where we can have a drink even in COVID times, or we can eat in COVID times, even in rainy Brussels. So that's the first big lesson for me. Talk about objectives, not about the means. The mean is just a mean. It's the objective, what it's all about. Second lesson I learned, let people dream, you know. Sometimes politicians, but also architects and other people, they start with explaining to people everything. But you know, if you want to go on holiday and you go to a travel agency, the travel agency is not going to explain to you, you have to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, then you have to take a flight, and maybe the flight will be delayed, and you will lose your luggage, and then maybe you will arrive in the hotel, and maybe there will be a problem with your room, and when you arrive, you say, hey, I'm not going to take that ride. He will show you a picture of blue skies, palm trees, white sand, happy people on a beach, and you will say, I want to be there. And that's exactly what we did the same in Brussels. We showed pictures. This is not a not existing situation yet. It will come in the future. We explained, of course, but we showed things how they could be and will be if we do the change. And then everybody will say, yeah, I want this. I want us to be a part of that. And a little trick, we didn't do it on this picture, but if you let people dream, use always blue skies, and the situation of today always with gray skies. So it makes a big difference of the way people look. Another lesson I learned, Actually, this is the Schuman Square. I don't know if you know Schuman Square, probably yes. It's where the European institutions are situated, where he is working, where Matthew is working, where the commissioners are there. And this is going more or less a situation. We have delivered a permit for this. So we are going to make the Schuman Square, the front door of the European Commission, basically car-free. There's only one way direction is going to be. It was a big fight, not with this commission. The actual commission is very supportive, but the one before, they were pretty against it because they were afraid they were going to be in a traffic jam for 3 minutes. So we explained to them how it's going to work. But what we learned to do is stay focused. Because when you want to change things, there will be a lot of people who are against, and a lot of people will try to distract you. The whole thing is stay focused. Know where you want to end. Never forget where you want to end. And when you do that, you will put energy. You will get energy of that. And you can explain and continue to convince people. Another thing that I have learned in City Things to Change, listen to those who say nothing. There are a lot of people who agree with you, but because they agree with you, they will don't give comments. They will say, it's a nice thing, you know. The ones who are against things, they will always have a big mouth and shout. And I don't know if you know, but in things, very often, 20% of the people are against things and 80% of the people are in favor, but they won't talk, they won't say anything. So try to listen to those who say nothing and figure out what they think. And maybe you have more support than you ever thought. And then the last one is a little tricky one, but make people happy against their will. Once in a while. I don't have the ambition to be the big dictator of Brussels, I want to reassure you. But politicians have a bad habit nowadays. They are elected to lead. They are elected to have a vision. They are elected to convince people to follow that vision. Only today, a bit too much politicians will run behind opinion polls, will behind the ones who shout, and don't dare to take positions. But if you're convinced of an idea, like the tram line I showed you, 85% of the people were against the tram line. 85. It's only at the end of the process, when the tram line was there, when it was running, and when the king came to open it, the people say, yeah, it's good. And 1 week later, when this tram line opened, we had to increase the frequency of the trams because there were too many people in it. And 1 month later, the ones who are against it were saying, oh, what a good idea I had to ask for this tram line. That's people too, you know. So what we did with the tram line is we made people happy against their will. We were convinced that it was going to work. But if we were wrong, we are living in a democracy, the sanction is very clear. People don't vote for you. That's the essence of democracy. You do things, you need to get time to do things. And what I want to say with this phrase is not to be a dictator, of course, but dare to go for what you believe, lead, and deliver. Because it's always delivering that will make people convince. Pictures not. It's you have to deliver what you have showed them. So by doing this all, we are now, together with my colleagues, transforming Brussels into another city. And, you know, Brussels is much more than you think. For the ones who don't know it, it's a very livable city. It's a very high quality of life. It's a very international city without a dominant culture of minorities. And nowadays, we are getting, like any other city that takes itself serious, a city for people and no longer a city for cars. So thank you very much. Good luck with all the work you're doing. And as Matthew has said, keep doing the good work because we're all in this thing for better city life. And who talks about better city life is talking about happy people. And when you talk about happy people, you're talking again about better life. Thank you very much and good luck today.